Welcome back, Wolfpack. Brolis here to a facts, stats, trivia, and a top 10 for the ice typing. Now, if you're enjoying this series, please leave a like and comment your favorite ice type Pokemon down below, as well as the next typing you want to see for the top 10 trivia. So, ice is a pretty cool type when we start to break it down. That defensively, we are going to be pretty weak. We have fighting, rock, steel, and fire weaknesses. And an interesting thing about ice is that it only resists itself. Offensively though, we do really well because we have 4 super effective hits and 4 resisted hits, but those super effective hits are very important. Dragon, flying, grass, and ground. So grass, we just kind of obliterate it really easily. Flying and dragon, sometimes those are even together, so we get 4 times super effective. We also just are able to take out one of the strongest typings in the game, which is dragon, and even ground typing. So ground is very powerful with that stab earthquake, and being able to hit with ice beam is going to be really nice indeed. Looking at the rankings of the base stat total, it's actually higher than I give it credit for. 6th on hit points, 13th on attack, 7th on defense, 4th in special attack and special defense, and 9th in speed. So actually we're above average on a majority of the stats, and we're really only the worst in like attack, and we don't really consider ice a physical typing that much anyways, so it's actually really good. And somehow we're actually the 5th highest base stat total of fully evolved Pokemon. As for some extra trivia about ice type Pokemon, Regice is going to be the single highest base stat for any ice type Pokemon with 200 in its special defense. Also, when we look at Avalugg, it is going to be the single highest base stat for a non-legendary ice type Pokemon, and that is going to be on the defense with 184 base defense. So pretty huge physical wall right there. If we look at the amount of ice type legendaries, there are only 5 ice type legendaries, and that includes all of Kyurem's forms. So 3 of the 5 ice legendaries are Kyurem, the other one is Articuno, and then Regice. We also have it to where it is the least common typing. Only 4.8% of Pokemon are going to be the ice type. Also, the status condition freeze is pretty OP, that you only have a 20% chance of thawing at the end of each turn, and there is no cap to it. You can be thawed indefinitely if your luck is really bad. Also, freeze is the only status condition that is not primarily activated. That's not like Hypnosis, Will-O-Wisp, Thunderwave, that it can only be done through a rare secondary effect of another move. Now we start breaking down individual Pokemon trivia. Kyurem is going to be really interesting because Kyurem's white and black forms are actually 700 base stat total, which means they are the 2nd highest base stat total, not including Mega Pokemon. The only Pokemon beating them out is Arceus. Also, if we want to look at some isolated abilities, Refrigerate, Snow Cloak, and Snow Warning are abilities exclusive to the ice typing. And the last bit of trivia is that ice actually has a representation in every single generation through a gym or an Elite Four member. So that's some really cool stuff to think about. Now the ice typing offensively is going to be pretty solid, that we do have a good amount of super effective and neutral hits, but we are resisted by quite a lot. That's that trade-off of having 4 in each. So not counting Shedinja, we only have to worry about Magnemite, Magneton, Magnezone, Heat Rotom, and Ice Rotom. By adding the ghost typing on top of that, we are going to have perfect neutral coverage, and then we can add some other things to that. Fighting and ground is going to give us a very high amount of super effective hits, with over 600 super effective hits on a moveset that theoretically has ice, electric, fighting, and ground. So some pretty crazy stuff right there. So that's time to get into the top 10 ice type Pokemon. Breaking the ice as the number 10 Pokemon on our list is going to be Cryogonal, or Articuno, or Walrein. Really, I had a hard time deciding that there's actually only 20 fully evolved Pokemon in the ice typing, so 1 and 2 Pokemon are going to make it on the list. But at the same time, I wanted to put a really cool Sheer Cold Pokemon at number 10. So if we break this down, Walrein going to be the bulkiest, most reliable Sheer Cold Pokemon, just for being able to take a hit and then maybe get that Sheer Cold damage back. Articuno gets Mind Reader Sheer Cold, so we go into Mind Reader Sheer Cold, and then that means we're going to be able to land this Sheer Cold after 2 hits. So there's a lot of combo potential right there. And then Cryogonal is going to be the fastest Pokemon that can learn Sheer Cold, and it also has a very high amount of special defense. So depending on how you're playing with these Pokemon, you might be able to find a very successful Sheer Cold setup. So that's why they have to be number 10 on the list, in my opinion. Number 9 is definitely a Pokemon that gives people the chills, and that is going to be Frostlass. This is a Ghost Ice typing, which is actually a really cool typing, and it brings together some really awesome coverage. That does have access to Thunderbolt, and it does get Ghost type moves. So we get Ice Beam Stab and Shadow Ball Stab. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the coverage, that Frostlass has easy neutral coverage and can do a lot with that. They just throw on Destiny Bond, and now you have a pretty beastly Pokemon that has a high chance of hitting super effective, not gonna be resisted by anything, and then you just kind of do whatever with it. I like putting a Focus Sash on it personally, and then trying to get as many outspeeds as possible. Now back in the day, like 4th generation, Frostlass was an absolute monster, but there have been more Pokemon that are introduced with more speed, so its 110 speed isn't what it used to be, but still a very powerful Pokemon. All you need to do is outspeed your opponent twice in a row, so you get the 2 Ice Beams in there, then you go for a Destiny Bond, and it can be a really nasty Pokemon. It has Snow Cloak, so you can play some evasion shenanigans in a Hail team, or Cursed Body, to where if they try to hit you really powerfully, that move gets disabled, and you might be able to take advantage off of that as well. Our number 8 Pokemon on the list is going to be a Pokemon that is really good at just plowing through the competition, and that is going to be Avalugg. This Pokemon is just the ultimate physical wall. I mean, we have 95 base hit points and 184 on the defense. That if you just need a Pokemon that walls out your opponents completely when it comes to physical attacks, Avalugg is going to be your Pokemon. Now, it also has a lot of really good things. It gets Rapid Spin, and for some reason, a Pokemon this tanky gets Recover. So you can do all sorts of things. It even has Curse, so you get to set up with it. There's just nasty amounts of damage from this Pokemon, and it can even play a lot off of that. Avalanche is going to work into its also very high attack. That 117 attack with these stats, this Pokemon is just really good in many different ways. Sturdy means you're very likely to get a hit off. Own Tempo means you can't fall prey to any kind of swagger or just any confusion shenanigans. And Ice Body does give you a little bit of tankiness if you are playing for that Hail team. So overall, Avalugg, it doesn't have a lot of special defensive diversity, but it can really fit on any team that just needs that physical wall, and it does provide a lot of utility or tons of damage as well. Alright, splashing in at number 7, oh wait, that's not the right pond, is going to be Lapras. Lapras gets access to Freeze Dry. Not many Pokemon get this move, and it's a really cool move as well. Super effective on water type Pokemon, so it's an ice type that hits water super effective, so it just adds on to the coverage that with Freeze Dry, almost nothing gets in your way, which is pretty awesome to think about. Then we can just kind of add other moves. Ice Beam if we want a more powerful hit. We can also go for Blizzard. This is a really excellent Pokemon for setting up Hail as well, because it's such a tanky Pokemon. This Pokemon's 130 on the base hit points and then 80 and 95 on the defenses, so it becomes really tanky and gets a lot of setup that way. You can also just use it as a really strong bulky attacker. Give it Hydro Pump, give it Choice Specs, and also has a lot of tanky options as well. Now, it isn't exactly really hard to hit it super effective, but it is a Pokemon that still dishes out a good amount of damage and has some tankiness, and it just kind of does whatever. Water Absorb means that you can put it in a doubles team that has Surf, and it's going to get healed up, so it becomes even harder to knock out. Shell Armor is consistency, so you don't get crit, and then you just know how much damage you're taking every turn. And Hydration. Hydration means you can slap Rest on this Pokemon. You use Rest with Rain Dance, and then you wake up at the end turn, and that still gives you setup and all kinds of craziness. Toxic Stalling, whatever. Lapras, pretty frustrating Pokemon because it's so tanky, and it just provides a lot of potential damage and utility. Number 6 on the list will give you the Cold Shoulder with its Snow Warning ability that sets Hail. So Abomasnow is going to be your go-to Pokemon with Hail because Snow Warning summons Hail. Only one other evolutionary line gets in, that's going to be Aurorus. Now, Aurorus isn't on this list because it has a very frail typing. That having that Rock Ice typing just way too many weaknesses to worry about. It's actually pretty pitiful to think about. And Abomasnow does have a lot of weaknesses as well, but at least it pumps out ridiculous amounts of damage. 132 on the attack means you have a very solid offensive hit, and 132 on the special attack means your Blizzard is going to be amazing. Now, the best thing about Blizzard is that Blizzard cannot miss in Hail. So if you're in double battles, Blizzard also hits both opponents, which means Abomasnow, either Mega Abomasnow or regular Abomasnow, is going to be incredibly powerful when it comes to double battles and just any kind of Hail setup. If you get this Pokemon going under a Trick Room as well, it's really good, or regular Abomasnow can run a Scarf and still find moderate amounts of success. So really, you just have a bulky Pokemon, 90 base hit points, over 100 on both defenses. Even though it has a lot of super effective hits, if it isn't getting hit super, it's going to tank up those hits really well. And if you're using Blizzard in doubles, guaranteed to hit both opponents, huge amounts of damage, and there's just a lot of comboing with it, which is why it makes number 6 on the list. Now, Glaceon is going to be number 5 on the list, and this Pokemon refuses to chill out. And when we break it down, it's another just bulky Pokemon that can do a lot of really nasty things. So Snow Cloak, going to give it that setup. It also has Ice Body, so if you can get this Pokemon going under Hail, going to be very powerful, and you just have it use Hail. can use Hail for itself really effectively. Double Team with Hail means that you're setting up Double Team with the Snow Cloak and you get all kinds of free setup from there. You also have to respect the damage from this Pokemon. Blizzard is going to be really good, also gets access to Shadow Ball, or you can just go with the Ice Beam. And here's why it's just powerful. That 130 special attack gives you a lot of different options, and the cool thing about evolutions is that they all have the same base stats. So this Glaceon... But Glaceon just has them put in the right places, that we have 60 on the attack, so the lowest attack is going to something we're not using. Speed, if we're playing for bulk, we just take the hit and we throw it back. Amazing specs Pokemon right here, that you slap on the choice specs and you just pump out insane amounts of damage. It also gets access to Baton Pass, so you can be very strong in a Baton Pass chain that, you know, you receive Calm Mind, you receive any kind of boost, you add Double Team to it, and then you can just Baton Pass it along, or you just use that with damage, that if you can get special attack on this Pokemon, your opponent really can't do anything to you, so it is a solid Pokemon. Now, number 4 is a Pokemon that does not treat you ice in battle, and that is going to be Regice. Now, your body may or may not be ready when you're going against this, but its clear body means that you can't lower any of its stats, so that is something to just have a little bit of respect for. You can go for a couple of different interesting setups that you can use Thunder Wave on your opponent. Now you're getting outspeeds and you can play around it like that. But one of my favorite things to do with Regice is use Gravity. Now Gravity is going to be interesting because not only does it negate all ground immunities, but it lowers evasion. So that means it can use really powerful moves. Blizzard, going to have 100% accuracy under Gravity. It also gets access to Zap Cannon. So now it isn't going to have perfect accuracy, but you're going to have a 120 base power move with a 100% chance to paralyze the target. So you set up Gravity, you tank up the hit, you use Zap Cannon, and then you follow up KOs from there, and you are going to get quite a lot of usage out of Regice, and then you can add Focus Blast on top of it. The accuracy again will become 100%. So you can run a really gimmicky set like this, and it will be something to fear. In double battles, it's going to set Gravity for your other Pokemon using other low accuracy moves, but the damage threat is absolutely unreal from this Pokemon, or it just becomes a frustrating tank that, you know, you can just go Sleep Talk Curse into some kind of damage, and you're going to have a very hard time busting this Pokemon down in any regard. And even then, it's just a silly special defense tank that's going to be able to wall out any kind of special attacks your opponent throws at it. Number 3 on the list is going to be Mamoswine. Now, Mamoswine is not a Pokemon you want to be around on thin ice because it is such a monstrous attacker. That 130 on the attack, 110 on the hit points means it gets to do whatever you want. You can see all kind of variants of Mamoswine. You'll see Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf means it's going to be going for the damage and just get as many outspeeds as possible. So you might see Jolly Nature, you might just see Adamant, but it's going to pack a huge hit, and its stab is unreal. That it has ground typing, so you get Stab Earthquake with all that power. That's kind of crazy. It also gets Icicle Crash. With that being a new move introduced recently, it just does a lot of damage. The physical ice move, 85 power, getting stabbed, 30% chance to flinch, going to be pretty heavy. We also get moves like Iron Head for the Fairy Crushing, and we just have great coverage overall. Throw in Stone Edge, and that is going to be an excellent Scarf Mamoswine. Also, you might see a Focus Sash on it, or a Life Orb. Life Orb means not going to be as fast, but it can still find the outspeeds, really break down Pokemon with extra damage on top of it. And if it is Focus Sashed, you will see Stealth Rocks from it, and then it converts damage after the Stealth Rocks. Still very, very scary. Now, you know what they say about revenge as a dish best served cold? Well, one of the best revenge Pokemon in the game is Weavile, which is why it is number 2 on this list. Just too much speed. 125 base speed means it's going to outspeed many different Pokemon, almost everything in the game without like Scarf or worrying about speed boosting or anything. So you like to slap this Pokemon with a Jolly Nature and then just finds whatever outspeed it wants, but still has a 120 attack. 120 attack gives it a lot of different options that it can run with. That this Pokemon likes setting up Swords Dance, so you can go Swords Dance with Focus Sash. So now you're doubling your attack, and then when Focus Sash gets procced, you still have a lot of things you can run from there. So then you run Icicle Crash and Knockoff. Now, being a Dark Ice typing, you get stab damage on your Knockoff. So 50% and then 50% more damage if you remove an item, and you can even keep some priority with Ice Shard, or you can go with a fighting type move such as Brick Break. Really, Weavile has a lot of scary things that it does because it's so fast. If you just can't keep up with it, you're just going to go down. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. Also gets access to Fake Outs, so it can support in doubles with one of the fastest Fake Outs in the game. Very, very scary Pokemon, and like I said, it just comes in and it cleans up. Such good revenge Pokemon because it comes in, okay, you're either hitting me and I get a free Swords Dance, or I just knock you out straight up with a Knockoff, Icicle Crash, or Brick Break, or whatever other coverage move you want to put right here. You might see a Low Kick from time to time, or even Poison Jab for that Fairy super effective hits, but Weavile is going to find ways to just be utterly destructive and that's why it's number 2 on the list. So it might not be a surprise when you see the icing on the cake of this list being Cloyster. Now it is a tough call between Weavile and Cloyster for the strongest ice typing, but I have to give it to Cloyster because Shell Smash is just way too absurd. You lower your special defense and defense by 1, but then you raise your attack, special attack, and speed by 2. Now what really breaks Cloyster is going to be the skill link ability. Multi-hit moves always hit the maximum number of times. Well, you learn a lot of really crazy things. You get Rock Blast. That's going to hit 2 to 5 times. You also get Icicle Spear. That's where things get serious. Stab move hits 2 to 5 times, so it's going to be 125 base power, 100% accuracy, getting stab under that skill link while you're already doubling your attack. Like, that's just kind of silly. So 95 attack goes up to 289, and since we're doubling our speed, we can still go with an adamant nature. So over 300, getting doubled into an almost 200 base power move that will break a Focus Sash or Sturdy. It's just absolutely scary. Now, there are a couple things that you can do. You can go White Herb, that way you keep your defense. But against a Pokemon that's physical, you get a really easy chance to set up. So White Herb is going to reset those defenses back to 0, or you'll even see something silly like a King's Rock. So as if having all that damage wasn't hilarious enough, King's Rock. Holders attacks without a chance to flinch gain 10% chance to flinch on each hit. So Rock Blast and Icicle Spear are going to hit 5 times, and each hit applies that chance for King's Rock. I think it stacks to like 40% chance to flinch while doing all that damage, so it's absolute shutdown. If it gets the setup off, that if your opponent doesn't have any priority, the game is over for them. So that is something to consider, and then you even get a little priority to respawn to it. So that's why you just carry Ice Shard as well. And that's kind of scary right there, that you're going to outspeed with that priority. If Stealth Rocks is up, it might be enough damage to even knock out that priority Pokemon, like Ice Sharding into a Dragonite. It won't be able to extreme speed you if it gets the multi-scale broken with Stealth Rocks. So Cloyster, very scary, but again, Weavile has a lot of setup potential, does some really fun gimmick things as well, but I just gotta give it to Cloyster because if you don't catch its setup, it's going to one-shot you in many situations, and even then, it can run as a special attacker. You give it Hydro Pump and Ice Beam, and it just becomes nasty with high amounts of damage as well. So if you guys enjoyed this video, those are the top 10 Ice-type Pokemon, and I hope you all have a nice day. Stay cool.